Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. Today we're going to go down memory lane. Something that's near and dear to my heart. Just the fond memories of doing this back in the 80s. And I think pretty much any child born between the mid and late 70s and even early 80s will remember this fondly. And I'm talking about getting up on Saturday mornings and rushing out to the kitchen, grabbing a bowl of cereal, and sitting down in front of the TV and watching the Saturday morning cartoons. Now, this just did not happen on Saturdays, at least for me. I have fond memories of running home from school and getting a bowl of cereal and sitting down and watching after school cartoons from 4 o'clock till 5:30, and grabbing that bowl of cereal and sitting down and watching shows like Thundercats or G.I. Joe, Silverhawks. On Saturday mornings it was Care Bears, Looney Tunes, and then eventually that led into the very late 80s into the early 90s, shows like California Dreamin' and Saved by the Bell. Still sitting there with a bowl of cereal in my lap. And then what kinds of cereal? Well, you had cereals like Mr. T, which was basically just Captain Crunch in the shape of teas. Also there was Pac-Man and the Count Chocula, Fruity Pebbles is what I meant. But my favorite cereal from the 80s was the Nintendo cereal system. If you remember that, it was basically two cereals in one box. You had a fruity cereal and a berry cereal, and usually on the cover of the black box there was a picture of the Super Mario Brothers game and Zelda and the fun times. And I'm sure my parents were thankful, because that was probably the quietest time, was when sitting in front of that TV growing up. A lot happened during the summer. You wouldn't wake up as early, but it's one of the first things, grab that bowl of cereal and go and sit down with other shows. And of course, there's other things that happened during the 80s that we all love. Some of the other things, some of the staples of cereals that are still around to this day: Lucky Charms, Trix, Frosted Flakes, and other cartoons during that time: The Real Ghostbusters, Transformers, Brave Star, Mask, Alvin and the Chipmunks. Another personal favorite, Muppet Babies. Do you remember those? That had clips of live action movies and TV series intertwined with the animation. And of course, another personal favorite, Voltron. And then other things that were invented in the 80s: CDs, the Nintendo, disposable cameras, and toward the end of the 80s, the Nintendo Game Boy, which was a very happy day when I got one for Christmas. And although they weren't invented in the 80s, McDonald's added chicken nuggets to their menu, and they took off like wildfire. Not much really else to say about that. Some other foods that were invented during the 80s that we've come to love: Olive Garden restaurant, 1982. The debacle that was New Coke, I remember that as well. That was 1985. Microwave sales reached their records high in the 80s. Another item that was invented in the 80s: Cool Ranch Doritos. Lunchables. Lean cuisine frozen entrees and dinners. Came out in 1981. I remember trying a few of those and not really liking them all too much. Fruit roll-ups were an 80s invention. Nerds were an 80s invention. Hot Pockets. And one of my favorites, Hostess pudding pies, which I would be making another episode just for that, because they also had the Ninja Turtle pie, which was a pastry filled with vanilla custard, and then the glaze on the outside of the pie was a neon green to mimic a turtle. The memories, the generation that grew up playing outside until the street lights came on, when our parents kicked us out, said, "Don't want you in here until the lights come on." Parents never had to worry. They knew our friends' parents, they knew where we were. And also, I lived in an apartment building, high rise, yelling up to my mom from outside, "Mom, can you throw down a couple freezies?" And that was especially nice on a hot summer day. Or going swimming every day, as the building complex that I lived in had a pool just for the residents of the buildings, which was fantastic. And of course, Tonka trucks, the old school metal kind, the ones that were built to last, not the plastic crap that you get today. That goes for the same for Transformers. They had some plastic parts, but for the most part, old Optimus was metal and transformed, and Megatron was a gun, not a tank or whatever else they make them transform into nowadays. But I digress. Not my choice. Maybe the world is getting a little too soft. But hey, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I am a Gen X. Not much more to say about that. I really don't know what else to say. I even remember I didn't have to leave my home to go to school until about 8:30 in the morning. And I would often wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning just so I could watch the cartoons before going to school. And this was long before, all the channels started airing news from 6 o'clock onwards, which, as a young kid, really ticked us off. Because I remember getting up in the morning watching Beetlejuice, The Real Ghostbusters, and depending on rotation, sometimes Thundercats, sometimes Silverhawks. It fully depended on rotation and the channel's discretion. But one of my biggest memories was the week that Thundercats released a 5-part week-long storyline, which essentially was a movie, because I remember they aired it as a movie one night on the local station, Fox station, that we got in Toronto, which was WUTV, Fox 29. I remember it airing at 8 o'clock at night and lasting for 2 hours. Thundercats ho! And I remember watching it the first time and saying, wow, I was amazed by this. It was right up there with the Transformers movie, and the shock and the crying that happened when Optimus died. Oh my God, that hurt me. And I know that hurt a lot of kids, because I remember the backlash that they got for it, because they were going to do the same thing to a character in the G.I. Joe movie, and the animators in the studio, thought best not to do that, not to follow suit with that, and not have the backlash that they did have. But it wasn't even just cereal. Sitting down watching cartoons with a bowl of chips. Yes, I was a bigger kid. I ate a lot of chips. Chips are my downfall. But What else is there to say? It was a simpler, more innocent time. Yes, sometimes, the TV was the babysitter, but it kept us quiet. It made me who I am today. I think I'm a good person. Not trying to get too philosophical or anything, but that's what happens. Nowadays, with all the screens, you can get entertainment no matter what. Kids will never know the rush of running to the bathroom as soon as the commercial happens and trying to be as fast as you can so you can get back in front of the TV before the show came back on. Never experienced that. At least not in my house, because, we don't have cable or satellite. We stream everything. No commercials. Don't need to worry about it. So far, it's working for everybody. But I miss those days, the simpler days. And after you're done and after the cartoons were over, you went outside and played. I had my little group of friends. We went outside, played. If it was a hot day, sometimes the landlord, the superintendent of the building would come out, hook up a hose, and put a sprinkler on. And oh, did we have fun just running through the sprinkler. Nowadays, you pretty much have to go to a splash park because properties are just not that big anymore to play around and run around in a sprinkler. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe wherever you are, there is. But I would love to know of any memories that you may have. Cartoons that you grew up with. Were there any of the same? I know I'm missing a lot. Because I grew up in Canada, we didn't get some of the cartoons that some of the Americans got. Just like we didn't have our own music station until many years after the USA got MTV. And then Canada got Much Music. And in both ways, both have died and are dead and gone. Because other than YouTube, where do you watch music videos now? Certainly not on TV, at least not that I know of. But that's for another episode, which may be. So, and in case if you're wondering, my favorite flavor of chip is pretty much any sour cream and onion. It doesn't matter the brand. It doesn't matter if it's a name brand. It doesn't matter if it's a store brand. Sour cream and onion all the way. But what are your memories? Did you wake up before the sun and sit down in front of your TV, watching cartoons, eating a bowl of cereal, while maybe your parents were still asleep, or one of your parents was still up, or just getting up and getting ready to go to work? That's what it was for me. And then going to school and talking about those cartoons and telling kids about the other big thing, the toy that came in the cereal package. Oh, those were fun. I don't even know if that happens anymore. But almost every cereal in the 80s, it didn't matter how small of a following the cartoon had, there was a cereal made for that cartoon, and it usually had a toy of some sort or a trinket in with the cereal. I remember a cereal called Ice Cream Scoops, I think it was. It was basically balls of white corn, sugar corn, almost like Captain Crunch or Corn Pops, that mimicked scoops of vanilla ice cream. And they had little graham crackers in the shape of cones, I think it was, to mimic the ice cream cone. And basically tasted like vanilla ice cream. And usually all the time in there, they give you a coupon for Dairy Queen. And yes, I'm saying the names. Mr. T had stickers. Ghostbusters cereal had a glow-in-the-dark frisbee type toy that you could play with. All the cereals had something. Or even, if they didn't have anything in the box, there was games on the box to play, whether it be a maze or a crossword puzzle or a word search or whatever. they had it all. Now it's just the only thing on it, ingredients. At least the last time I looked at a box of cereal. But I even remember, certain cereals, you could collect points. And once you reach a certain amount of points, you send in everything and you would get something back in return. Whether it would be, the Trix plush bunny, the Trix rabbit, silly rabbit, Tricks are for kids. There was always something more that made the cereal fun. Cereal nowadays just looks like a depressed adult who doesn't know what to do with themselves. But anywho, I think that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you for listening. I am Uncle Teddy Bear. Visit my website, unkleddybear.com. That's uncleteddybear.com. Thanks for listening. Keep the memories going, because that's all we have. Have fun. Be nice to each other. And I'll talk at you in the next episode.